Tensions between the United States and China, a recurring theme in global economic discourse, have reached a new crescendo as President Trump hints at a potential summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. This speculation comes amid a backdrop of escalating tariffs and trade war retaliations, compelling both nations to reassess their diplomatic strategies. While Trump has suggested that preparations are underway for a meeting, Beijing remains in a state of uncertainty, grappling with the implications of U.S. policies and the challenges of navigating its relationship with an unpredictable American administration. In a recent press conference, Trump indicated the need for a cleanup in Washington to set the stage for discussions with Xi, signaling his desire to engage at a higher diplomatic level. However, specifics about what this meeting might entail remain elusive, and China has yet to publicly acknowledge any forthcoming talks. Experts suggest that the stakes are exceptionally high, particularly with Trump's existing 20% tariffs on Chinese imports, which have already strained the economic relationship. Analysts warn that further escalation could severely hinder China's efforts to stabilize its economy, which is still reeling from the repercussions of the trade war. Chinese scholars and diplomats are attempting to bridge the communication gap with U.S. officials, fearing that their messages may be misrepresented or ignored by members outside Trump's inner circle. Dewey, a prominent Chinese academic, articulated this concern, questioning whether the channels currently used for diplomacy could effectively reach the president. "We talk through the diplomatic channel. That's the normal channel. But can that reach President Trump?" This sentiment underscores the broader doubts within China regarding the clarity of U.S. objectives in the ongoing trade conflict. China is keen to understand Trump's demands should a negotiation materialize. Key issues include the lifting of tariffs, easing restrictions on technology exports, and assurances over Taiwan, the self-governing island that China claims as its territory. In response to the tariffs, Beijing has retaliated with levies on U.S. agricultural imports, a move designed to apply pressure while still keeping the door open for future discussions. A Chinese official recently asserted that the country would fight to the end in the face of what they perceive as economic aggression from the U.S. The next few weeks are poised to be critical for U.S. China relations, with analysts predicting that Trump may impose an additional round of tariffs unless substantive talks occur. Any further tariffs could heighten tensions and diminish the likelihood of a summit, with analysts cautioning that such actions could portray Xi as weak if he agrees to negotiate under duress. Amid these diplomatic uncertainties, the financial landscape is shifting. Following a recent rally in Chinese stocks, some investors are predicting that Chinese markets may outperform their U.S. counterparts. The MSCI China Index has surged by 19% since the year began, contrasting sharply with the S&P 500, which recently slipped into correction territory. This shift in momentum reflects growing confidence in China's recovery, particularly in the technology sector, which has seen renewed interest following advances in artificial intelligence. Richard Harris, CEO of Port Shelter Investment Management, noted the changing dynamics, stating, "The U.S. has had a good period, and that's coming to an end because Trump's policies are very anti-economy." He further emphasized that the ramifications of the trade war and anticipated fiscal tightening in the U.S. could lead to stagnation, with economic growth projected to fall below 2% this year. Conversely, optimism surrounding China's technological advancements and government support for the sector could bolster its market outlook. As the situation evolves, the focus remains on whether constructive dialogue can be established between the two superpowers, with Trump's administration demonstrating a penchant for unpredictability. The path forward remains fraught with challenges. The next few weeks could potentially reshape the economic landscape, with both nations poised to either escalate hostilities or find common ground for negotiation. As the world watches closely, the implications of these developments could extend far beyond the U.S.-China relationship, influencing global markets and economic stability for years to come. In a significant move that underscores the ongoing tensions in international trade relations, China has introduced a new regulation aimed at countering what it describes as discriminatory measures in intellectual property (IP) disputes. The new rule set to take effect on May 1 is part of a broader strategy by the Chinese government to defend its interests against external pressures, particularly from Western powers. The regulation announced by the State Council China's cabinet does not specifically name any countries. Yet it is widely recognized as a response to the United States and the European Union. These regions have long accused China of intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers, claims that Beijing has consistently denied. The newly established IP rule is intended to provide a framework for Chinese citizens and organizations who find themselves embroiled in foreign IP disputes, particularly when these are perceived as part of a broader strategy of containment and suppression. According to the regulation, if a foreign government engages in what China views as discriminatory or restrictive measures against its entities, Beijing may invoke its foreign relations law and anti-foreign sanctions law in response. Furthermore, the new guidelines stipulate that Chinese entities must adhere to local laws regarding state secrets, data security, and personal information when submitting evidence to foreign jurisdictions. This directive reflects a cautious approach, emphasizing compliance with domestic laws while also asserting China's stance in the international arena. The timing of this regulation coincides with a series of legal challenges facing China in various international forums. Just days earlier, a Missouri judge ruled that the Chinese government was liable for $24 billion in damages related to the hoarding of protective equipment during the COVID-19 pandemic. This landmark judgment highlights a growing trend of litigation targeting China as states seek accountability for the perceived mishandling of the global health crisis. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey framed the ruling as a significant victory for the state and the nation, aiming to hold China accountable for its actions during the pandemic. In a parallel development, the domestic media landscape is also being shaped by shifts in U.S. policy. Recent cuts to the Voice of America (VOA) by the Trump administration have drawn mixed reactions, with some analysts suggesting that this may provide an opportunity for the Chinese government to bolster its narrative globally. The Chinese Communist Party has historically viewed U.S. media as a competitor in the realm of international reporting, and the reduction in funding for these outlets could weaken efforts to counteract propaganda from authoritarian regimes. Critics of the cuts argue that such decisions undermine the U.S. capacity to compete with the Chinese Communist Party's influence and narrative. Representative Raja Krishnamurti emphasized that U.S. media outlets play a crucial role in providing accurate information to populations under authoritarian rule, allowing for critical discourse that questions state propaganda. As these narratives unfold, the implications for U.S.-China relations continue to deepen. The introduction of the new IP regulation, combined with existing legal challenges and shifts in media policy, suggests a growing entrenchment in the battle for influence and narrative in international affairs. Observers will be keenly watching how these developments will shape China's international standing and its relations with Western powers, particularly as both sides navigate an increasingly complex geopolitical landscape. The coming months may offer further insight into how these tensions will be addressed and whether any diplomatic resolutions can emerge from the ongoing disputes. In a climate of economic uncertainty and rising deflation fears, experts are urging China to adopt a more assertive monetary stimulus strategy to bolster domestic demand. The backdrop of a worsening trade war with the United States adds urgency to this call, as recent government initiatives have been deemed insufficient to alter the prevailing economic narrative. On March 19, 2025, during a conference in Beijing, Su Dinghua, an associate dean at the China-Europe International Business School, expressed concerns over China's sluggish economic indicators. Despite the Chinese government's recent announcement of a 30-point strategy aimed at boosting consumption, Su emphasized that more significant measures are necessary to shift public sentiment away from deflation and towards moderate inflation. This sentiment is critical as consumer expectations play a major role in driving spending. Data from the first 2 months of the year indicates that China's consumer price index fell by 0.1% year-on-year, starkly contrasting with Beijing's target inflation rate of 2% for 2025. Such figures have led to a consensus among government officials, academics, and business leaders that immediate action is required to restore market confidence and assist local governments grappling with debt management. Su highlighted the pivotal role of local governments in stimulating consumer spending, noting that their financial health directly affects public sector wages and the operation of state-owned enterprises. Spending is pushed not by the central government but by local governments, he stated, underlining the interconnectedness of local fiscal health and consumer behavior. As China grapples with these internal economic challenges, external pressures from the United States further complicate the landscape. President Trump's administration has imposed significant tariffs on Chinese goods, which not only heighten trade tensions but also threaten to exacerbate China's economic woes. Recent reports suggest that Trump may be contemplating a high-stakes summit with Xi Jinping, yet the lack of clarity regarding U.S. intentions leaves Chinese officials navigating a complex diplomatic terrain. China's response to the tariff situation has involved countermeasures, including tariffs on U.S. agricultural imports, but analysts caution that these actions could escalate tensions and further complicate negotiations. Dou Wei, director of the Center for International Security and Strategy at Tsinghua University, articulated the challenge of communicating effectively with the Trump administration, noting concerns that officials outside of Trump's inner circle may not adequately relay Beijing's positions. The forthcoming month is critical for U.S. China relations, with analysts predicting that further tariffs could be imposed unless substantive talks occur. The unpredictable nature of Trump's diplomatic approach adds another layer of complexity as Chinese officials remain focused on protocol and detail-oriented negotiations to avoid surprises or loss of face. While the current economic climate presents considerable challenges, there are glimmers of optimism in the form of China's stock market rally. Recent weeks have witnessed notable gains, with the Hang Seng China Enterprises Index rising 26% and the MSCI China Index gaining 24%, contrasting sharply with the performance of major U.S. indices, which are in decline. However, strategists from BofA Securities caution that this rally may face a meaningful correction soon, drawing parallels to the 2015 boom and bust cycle. Concerns linger among investors regarding persistent issues such as deflation, employment stagnation, and geopolitical tensions. As the global economic landscape shifts, the interplay between U.S. trade policies and China's domestic strategies will be pivotal in determining the trajectory of both economies. As China navigates these complex challenges, the call for more robust monetary stimulus and effective trade negotiations becomes increasingly urgent. The outcome of these efforts will not only shape China's economic future but also influence global market dynamics in the months and years to come. The next steps taken by both Beijing and Washington will be crucial in determining whether relations can thaw and economic stability can be achieved. In the face of increasing military tensions, Taiwan is stepping up its defense preparations amid escalating incursions by Chinese forces. Recent developments highlight the growing urgency for the self-governing island to bolster its defenses against potential aggression from mainland China. As the geopolitical landscape shifts, Taiwan's response reflects not only its commitment to sovereignty but also the complex dynamics of U.S.-China relations. Over the weekend, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense reported a significant surge in the number of Chinese military vessels, aircraft, and drones entering the airspace and waters surrounding the island. Between March 17 and March 18, an unusual number of 59 Chinese military units were recorded in Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone (ADIZ), further intensifying concerns about Beijing's intentions. Taiwanese Defense Minister Wellington Koo characterized these drills as evidence of China being a troublemaker that threatens regional peace. The Chinese government, however, framed its military maneuvers as a necessary response to perceived provocations from the U.S. and Taiwan. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning asserted that the drills serve as a resolute response to foreign support for Taiwanese independence, labeling them as necessary, legal, and justified measures to protect national sovereignty. This statement came in the wake of Taiwan's President William Lai Ching-te's comments designating mainland China as a foreign hostile force, which further escalated tensions. The Taiwan Strait, a vital international waterway, is not only crucial for trade but has also become a focal point of military posturing between the U.S. and China. The recent actions by China elicited a strong response from the group of 7 G7 nations, which condemned Beijing's illicit, provocative, coercive, and dangerous actions that threaten maritime stability. In turn, China dismissed the G7's criticisms as filled with arrogance and prejudice, indicating the deepening rift in international relations. In response to the growing military threat, Taiwan is actively enhancing its defense capabilities. The island has placed orders for new missiles, aircraft, and other military assets from the U.S. while also revitalizing its domestic defense industry. As part of these efforts, Taiwan aims to ensure that it remains prepared for any potential conflict, particularly as Chinese leader Xi Jinping continues to prioritize the reunification of Taiwan with the mainland. The strategic calculations are further complicated by the U.S.'s recent intelligence disclosures regarding China and North Korea, which have revealed the extent of military cooperation and threats posed by both nations. As the international community grapples with these developments, Taiwan's situation remains precarious, caught in the crosshairs of a broader geopolitical struggle. As Taiwan fortifies its defenses and navigates its complex relationship with both China and the U.S., the implications of these tensions will likely reverberate across the region. The unfolding situation suggests that as long as the cross-strait dynamics remain fraught, Taiwan will continue to adapt its defense strategies, underscoring the importance of vigilance in an increasingly volatile security environment. Looking ahead, the international community will be watching closely to see how these developments unfold and what measures will be taken to maintain stability in the region. In the intricate web of global diplomacy, the relationship between the United States and China stands as a pivotal point of contention. Recent comments from Jurg Wuk, the former president of the European Union Chamber of Commerce in China, highlight the growing complexities and trust issues that threaten the hope for a successful diplomatic backchannel between the two superpowers. In an interview with the South China Morning Post, Wuk expressed skepticism about the feasibility of finding a reliable intermediary capable of bridging the chasm of misunderstanding that exists between Washington and Beijing. "I think there is no backchannel at this stage outside normal diplomatic places. I don't see at this stage the attempt from both sides," Wuk stated. His observations come amid a backdrop of strained relations exacerbated by a lack of trust that hinders meaningful dialogue. He emphasized the difficulty of locating a figure trusted by both parties who could effectively communicate the perspectives of U.S. President Donald Trump to Chinese President Xi Jinping and vice versa. It has to be someone who is knowledgeable, in both cases senior enough to have the ear of both presidents. "And I don't see this yet," he added. Wuk's insights resonate in a climate where the U.S. China dynamic is fraught with suspicion and geopolitical maneuvering. The implications of this trust deficit are far-reaching, not only affecting bilateral relations but also impacting global stability and economic frameworks. As both nations grapple with rising tensions over trade, military presence, and alliance formations, finding common ground seems increasingly elusive. Compounding these challenges is the evolving situation in Taiwan, which has traditionally occupied a central role in U.S. China relations. President Trump's administration has adopted a somewhat transactional approach to foreign policy that raises questions about the future of America's commitment to Taiwan. Amid this uncertainty, Trump has urged Taiwan to bolster its defense spending while simultaneously criticizing its semiconductor industry. This approach has led many in Taiwan to reconsider their reliance on U.S. support, particularly in light of the administration's fluctuating foreign policy strategies. Shi Tingye, director of the think tank U.S. Taiwan Watch, noted the shift in U.S. attitudes under Trump, remarking that discussions have increasingly focused on bargaining power rather than shared democratic values. Privately, everybody is thinking, okay, if it's going to be a transactional type of relationship, how do we play that game? Ye stated, reflecting the apprehension felt by Taiwanese officials regarding U.S. support amidst changing geopolitical landscapes. The recent announcement of a significant investment by Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company, TSMC in the U.S. has sparked debates about Taiwan's strategic position and the implications of such a move for its national security. Former Taiwanese President Ma Ying-jeou criticized the current administration for its engagement with the U.S., suggesting that reliance on a business-minded Trump poses risks for Taiwan's sovereignty. As tensions rise, Taiwan's legislature is grappling with conflicting views on defense spending, with some advocating for cuts amidst concerns over wastefulness and an aggressive stance towards China. The specter of U.S. abandonment looms large, especially in light of Trump's controversial dealings with Ukraine, which have fueled fears in Taiwan about the reliability of American promises. Despite these challenges, experts like Wen Ti-sung from Australia National University maintain that Taiwan's strategic significance cannot be understated. As the U.S. continues to position itself against China's growing influence, Taiwan remains a crucial asset in the broader Indo-Pacific strategy. As long as the U.S. maintains a negative stance toward China, Taiwan remains a crucial bargaining chip for the U.S., Chung noted, underscoring the island's importance in global security dynamics. In this evolving landscape, the calls for a more inclusive diplomatic approach resonate strongly. China's recent overtures for a peace process in Ukraine, emphasizing the need for all stakeholders to be involved, reflect an attempt to reposition itself as a mediator amidst U.S.-Russia tensions. This strategic move, coupled with Trump's unpredictable foreign policy, suggests that the future of U.S.-China relations and Taiwan's role within it remains a critical area to watch. As the world turns its gaze toward these developments, the need for robust dialogue and trust-building measures grows ever more urgent. Whether a viable backchannel can be established between the U.S. and China, and how Taiwan navigates its precarious position, will likely shape the contours of global diplomacy in the years to come.